This is the story of an absolute being, a person from Earth who reincarnation into another world. On his path of conquest, he had conquered many dimensions, proving himself the strongest. Even the dragons that drove the continent into terror, the Demon King and the 7 archdukes of the demon realm, the heavenly demon and the alliance leader of the martial world, the spirit king who guards the world tree were no match for him, though. He went on this path of conquest in order to find his way back home, his way back to Earth. Despite over 300 years of searching, he still didn't find a way. Tired of it all, he decided to go into eternal slumber, with the aid of a magic created by his underlings. But unfortunately that magic, which was supposed to put him into eternal slumber, somehow brought him back to Earth, where he ended up becoming a father. If you like this story, don't forget to break the like and subscribe. Also comment your thoughts about this story. Now the story begins as Chaltier von der Crapsley, Prime Minister of the Annex Empire. Rather than reigning as the king of vampires, he chose the true joy of serving his lord as a loyal retainer, and so he dared to record the infinite achievements his lord had accomplished. It all began one day, when a figure suddenly appeared from another world and conquered the Annex continent. With a single strike, he took down the dragon who dared challenge him and all other beings, finally reigning over the Annex Empire. As the great emperor, Crapsley stepped forward and congratulated his lord for conquering all dimensions and putting them beneath his feet. He was truly delighted for him. But the lord, who is the protagonist of this story, told Crapsley that he has yet to conquer all dimensions, because in the end no one knows anything about his homeland, from the day our protagonist appeared to the day he conquered the vast continent. Took only 50 years. He is the one who can command millions of the dead with mere thoughts, and possesses martial prowess to split mountains and part seas with a single sword strike. He is now known as the Emperor of the Annex Empire, a catastrophe beyond measure who descended from another world. People called him immortal, the king of the dead who rules over the living. No one was more worthy of all those titles than him. Before his overwhelming power, countless beings knelt down. Those insolent ones who resisted him to the end became undead and swore eternal loyalty. The dragons that drove the continent into terror, the Demon King and the 7 archdukes of the demon realm, the heavenly demon and the alliance leader of the martial arts world, the spirit king who guards the world tree. No one and nothing could match our protagonist, the great lord of the Annex Empire. Naturally, all dimensions connected to the Annex continent lay beneath his feet. Crapsley continued his recording. But how could we lowly beings fathom his will? What he truly desired was something else. To return to Earth, his homeland. That was all. And so after wandering through all dimensions, unable to find a way back home, he summoned all his vassals and spoke. He said to them, "I am very weary. I wish to fall into a deep sleep now." His vassals were surprised by his words. They worriedly told him they would continue to search for a way to return home. Our protagonist asked them, "What use would it be even if I returned home? Nearly 300 years have passed since I left my homeland. The family and friends I miss so dearly have all grown old, fallen ill, and passed away. I'm too late, so from now onward." He stood up as he walked forward. "You all should only focus on finding a way for me to enter eternal rest." And so he left the hall that day. The sound of weeping never ceased within the palace, but no one could disobey his command. Eventually, the senior liches of the palace created a crushing magic circle that would devour everything. Our protagonist walked alone towards the magic circle. The only words he left behind were, "Now I can meet everyone." But Crapsley immediately followed him from behind as he stepped forward into the magic circle, wanting to serve him even in death. As the two stepped inside, the magic circle activated. A light shone brightly as if about to devour them whole, and so Crapsley thought everything had ended. But a loud voice came scolding Crapsley as soon as the light turned on. "Hey, why are you sitting here with the lights off?" Crapsley panicked and covered his face. The voice was that of our protagonist, now with a baby in his hand. He told Crapsley that when he is at home, he should stop being stingy and just leave the lights on. Crapsley replied back nervously, "I humbly report that even the faintest candle shines brighter than the sun on the darkest nights. Look at you with that quick comeback." Our protagonist retorted, "If you're going to say, 'I humbly report,' then don't say it at all." Crapsley didn't say further. He then asked our protagonist why he hasn't gone to bed at this hour. "Are you making fun of me right now?" Our protagonist scolded, "I can sleep when the baby sleeps." Immediately Crapsley bowed, telling our protagonist to please kill him for being gutsy. Our protagonist told him to keep his voice down. He'd make the baby cry. Yeah, of course. The baby began to cry as she held on to our protagonist tightly. Our protagonist immediately told Crapsley to deal with the situation, since he made her cry. But then he asked Crapsley why she was crying again. Crapsley told him that perhaps she wished to eat. Our protagonist replied that he had already fed her. Crapsley suggested again to check her diapers, but he already cleaned it dry. Crapsley was defeated. His knowledge couldn't fathom the reason why she was crying. While seeing Crapsley is no help at all, he went to meet his sis, and so Crapsley continued his journaling. But then, he was called out that his sister ordered late-night snacks for them. His eyes sparkled with excitement. He stood up courageously and immediately ran out to eat the chicken, leaving the journal on the table and a particular page opened. Due to the magic circle's failure, my lord finally returned to his homeland he longed for so deeply. However, here there was something my lord, who never even had a lover, let alone married, could never have imagined. And that is the little princess. Now they were both drinking Coca-Cola and eating chicken, bought by his sister. Crapsley told Subin with excitement on his face that the chicken is always delicious. He never gets tired of it. Subin politely told him with a smile to eat as much as he wants, then told our protagonist Gangjun that she can hold SEO and feed her baby food herself, so he should eat comfortably. And since he stayed at home today, he must still be really confused. She commented while cleaning the baby's mouth. He told her, he's already plenty comfortable and he's not confused at all. She refused, telling Gangjun that he must be very confused since he has gone through something like that. Gangjun told her he's fine, so she should not worry, but she insisted, telling him not to pretend he's okay. She's just grateful that he came back alive. He disappeared during the first gate incident. So it's been years now since he was trapped inside the gate. For all those years, and he only just made it home. That's why it would be strange if he was to say he is okay right away. Gangjun insisted, as I have said repeatedly, I wasn't trapped in some gate. I was suddenly summoned to a place called the Anux continent. Yeah. You were some incredibly powerful emperor of some continent, right? She questioned with doubt. Gangjun confidently replied, yes, exactly. Because it's the truth. Our protagonist, Li Gangjun, emperor of Anax. Gate survivor, currently unemployed. Subin said to him, Sure, whatever. And what about that elderly gentleman? Crapsley introduced himself as Shaltair von de Crapsley. Simply put, Gangjun told her. He was the advisor, who helped with his duties and discussed state affairs with him. Crapsley, the emperor's closest aide. Gate survivor, currently unemployed and also leeching off Subin. As for Li Subin, she's Gangjun's older sister, and a factory worker on a 3-shift rotation. Well, then she sighed. Most gate survivors have complete mental breakdowns from PTSD or develop speech disorders. At least, she said with a smile. You two only seem to have delusions. So that's fortunate, Gangjun murmured to himself. Even if she's my only sister. That's rather disrespectful. Treating me like some common lunatic. She patted his shoulder and told him it's okay. He came back after 3 years. So it'll be hard to adjust to society right away. But he has sold his daughter. And he is still young with a bright future ahead. So he should not worry. And just focus on treatment or adjusting to Earth. She'll do her best to support him in the meantime. She also told Crapsley that he's welcome to stay with them, as long as he needs, until he can contact his family. Crapsley excitedly thanked her. All the while Gangjun was speechless. He was looking at Li Seol, his daughter infant, also unemployed, all leeching from Subin. She was playing with a bone stick. So he told her he'd tie it for her. While tying it, he told the little girl that in the past, he used to weave the knots for the nooses, used to execute those who committed serious crimes. Like treason, the little girl stuttered the word execute, trying to structure it together. He replied, yes, execute. Watch carefully. His gaze was sharp and steady. He tied the rope on the bone, then said to her, when you weave a knot this securely, the neck snaps in one go. The bone broke. Subin shouted his name and asked what the hell he was saying to a child. Right now? Gangjun told her he was just trying to teach her as a father. She refused, told him to just stop and wipe Seol's face, and that he shouldn't tell her scary stories anymore. Gangjun sighed and replied, that would be difficult. He took the wipes and cleaned her face, and she fell asleep under her father's soft touch. Subin told him it seems she likes her daddy's touch so much. Gangjun stood up, told Subin he'd go put her down in her room and come back. Minutes later, he put her on her bed. As she slept soundly, he recalled Subin telling him that his daughter was born while he was gone. While he was missing, the baby's mother died during childbirth. But he couldn't remember since it was 300 years ago, though now he accepted her wholeheartedly. He recalled Crapsley asking him what he would want to do if he returned to his homeland. He replied saying he would want to enjoy a peaceful daily life, live as an ordinary person quietly, as if he was invisible, unnoticed by anyone. Now he wondered if raising his own child would also be one form of an utterly ordinary life. He then stood up. He noticed some papers on the table, a collection notice bills. And so the next afternoon, Gangjin told Crapsley while feeding the baby that it seems like they've hit a major obstacle. Crapsley was surprised to hear the great absolute being his lord use the word obstacle. Gangjin told him to read the contents of the documents out loud. Crapsley did as instructed. He picked it up and started reading. Debt collection notice due to unpaid telecommunications charges. Notice of water supply suspension due to overdue water bills. Notice of electricity supply cut off due to unpaid bills. City gas payment notice and supply suspension alert. There were still more, but Gangjin told him to stop. Crapsley told him that the documents appear to be demands for payment. Gangjin replied, yes, correct. My sister didn't tell me, but it looks like our finances are a complete mess. Crapsley chuckled, I don't know who dared demand payment from a member of the imperial family, but we could temporarily raise tax rates and impose progressive taxes on nobles and regional lords. Gangjin laughed out loud. He told Crapsley, though your ideas are great, you're seriously mistaken. If we were to compare our status on Earth to the class system of the Annex continent, we're basically slaves or commoners. We receive a pittance from the ruling class in exchange for intense labor and hard work, just barely scraping by to survive. Crapsley was shocked by this news. He couldn't believe his ears. Even though he's a pure-blooded vampire who inherited royal blood and once rose to the position of vampire lord, leading his entire clan and received the title of Archduke for his great and small achievements, serving his lord, but in this world, he is a slave. The thought alone sent shivers down his spine. But he decided to calm down because a true retainer must show loyalty, even in times of crisis. He then told Gangjin that he would devote his entire being to ensure that his empire rises again here on Earth, and that he sits upon the throne once more. Gangjin told him to do that on his own. But first they need to make money now. Now the next day, Gangjin was feeding his daughter, but she refused to eat any further. Though Subin specially prepared the black sesame baby food, it seems it was not to her taste. Gangjin recalled the book he read. When a child doesn't want to eat, don't force them to make eating an enjoyable activity. Turn it into play. He thought of an idea, then told Subin they should play a game. He told her they should have a competition to see who can chew and swallow their food best. If she wins, he'll do whatever she wants and play with her all day. The little girl was excited by this offer, not knowing she was about to get scammed. Subin started feeding her. Gangjin grinned sinisterly at how slow she was in the Annex continent, crawling with all kinds of monsters. The reason Gangjin was able to rise as an absolute being, after being dropped in the middle of it, was because he gave his all, even when hunting a single rabbit. And so he started eating at an incredible pace, grinding his food with his teeth just like a grinder. He then said to the little girl, sorry, but at that speed you can't beat your father. She was surprised to see he finished first, so she began to cry. Subin carried her and asked Gangjin why he is making her cry. He told her he wasn't trying to make her cry. He then told his daughter that if she's upset, she should get stronger. This also made her cry again, this time increasing the intensity. All the while Crapsley was taking notes about Gangjin, challenging the princess to an eating competition. He gave his all and achieved victory against the 3-year-old princess, and so future developments are somewhat concerning. Minutes later, while carrying Saul in his hand, he asked his sister if he can go out now. She was surprised he wanted to go out so suddenly, though she told him it's not a problem since she has the day off, so she can watch Seol, but still it's too soon for him to go out alone. Crapsley laughed and politely told Subin it'd be all right. He'll accompany him sometime later. They entered a bus. Gangjin recalled Subin telling him she doesn't have a single one. When he asked, the neighborhood is a danger zone, so at least the rent is cheap. But even that gets deducted from the security deposit every month, so now she doesn't have money. He asked her how much she needs. She smiled it out, told him she'd figure it out somehow for now, so he should not worry. She just wished the lottery ticket she bought this week would win, like 1 billion, then they could move to a safer place. And she could focus on Seol until she finds a decent job, since Seol is at the age when she needs lots of love and attention. Gang-jun was relieved that at least money can solve the issue. He then told Crapsley that he has been thinking about something for smooth economic activities going forward. He'll need a new name and identity. Crapsley was surprised to hear he'd be given a new name. Gang-jun decided to give him a name suitable for Earth. So from now on he won't be called Shaltier von der Crapsley. He'll be called Choi Dulcio. The weird name surprised Crapsley, though he hasn't been on Earth for long. He knew the name sounds a bit bad. Gang-jun asked why his face is like that. Doesn't he like the name? Dulcio humbly told him he likes it. Gang-jun then asked why his face is like that again. The name Dol Seo has been passed down for generations. Only to loyal retainers. Dol means rock, and Seo means steel. Altogether it means he has a heart of steadfast loyalty. Hearing the meaning of the name Crapsley, now Dulcio was happy to be called that name. Gang-jun was glad he liked it. But in truth, compared to the first name that came to his mind, Kim Jitong Dulcio is at least decent enough to use. Minutes later, they finally arrived at their location, and Gang-jun told Dulcio they should get off the bus. As they walked, Dulcio humbly asked Gang-jun where they were headed. Gang-jun told him with brimming confidence that they're going to a gate today. Dulcio laughed and told Gang-jun he made a brilliant decision, since a gate is crawling with all kinds of monsters. Gang-jun asked why he is excited. With a sinister smile and obvious evil thoughts, he told Gang-jun that no matter how excellent a sword may be, if you don't draw it for a long time, it becomes dull and rusty. He's already excited to loosen up after so long. A battlefield where blood and screams fill the air, and life and death intersect. It's been so long since he felt such a thing. Gang-jun brought him back to his senses. I think that might be difficult though. We're just going as porters. Surprised, Dulcio asked what he means by porters. Gang-jun told him that in order to hunt in a gate, they need to get something called a license. And that costs quite $1 million. One per person immediately. Dolce went on his knees. My lord, no matter what, this is wrong for you to work as a mere porter. Please allow me to handle economic activities alone until our finances stabilize. Gang-jun shyly told him to get up. What are you doing? Everyone's staring. They were mocking Gang-jun for making an old man kneel like that. But Dol Seo refused. Even if a blade comes to my throat, I absolutely cannot let you work as a mere porter. But then Gang-jun got close to him and scolded with a sharp, killing tone. Do you really want to die? Get up now. Dulcio was fear-stricken as he realized his lord is angry. If he ignored the warning, he knew he'd end up like the heavenly demon, once the absolute being of the martial world. Drooling into a bib, he immediately stood up, cleared his throat, and asked for forgiveness. Gang-jun placed his hand on his shoulder, telling him that he knows about his burning loyalty. You should not worry, porter work pays about 300,000 won a day. So after a few days covering utilities and license fees, we won't need to work as porters anymore. But then someone approached them and asked if they're by any chance the ones who applied to be porters for today's D-rank gate. Now at the other side was the gate they were supposed to raid, guarded by armed guards. Gang-jun looked around. He was surprised to see that even though a gate has opened, they're just walking around like nothing's happening. The guy Hunter Kim Bong-gu, C-rank, introduced them porters to his fellow hunter, Hunter Lee Byong-chul, C-rank. Byong-chul was quite disappointed. He asked Bong-gu if he's saying the old geezer and scrawny kid are going to work as porters. Gang-jun was speechless. Also laughed slightly, told Byong-chul that he may be old, but porter work is easy enough for him. He then introduced himself to the team. Byung-chul didn't buy his words. He told him that even strong young men cannot handle porter work. So what can an old geezer and scrawny kid do here? Dalsu whispered to Gang-jun, asking if he should kill them. Gang-jun told him not yet. They need to work as porters for 3 or 4 days to earn money for the Awakener license. Dalsu remembered Gang-jun had such deep intentions, and he almost made a grave mistake. Gang-jun stepped forward and asked, "Who's the leader of the group?" Bong-gu raised his hand, saying he is the party leader. Gang-jun asked if he is hesitating to hire them because they don't look reliable. Bong-gu shyly replied yes. Kong-jun said to him, "We may not look it, but we're both confident in our strength. I guarantee we'll never get tired before you or slow you down." Bong-gu was speechless. He wondered what he should do with his mom's situation and his younger sibling too. He really needs money this week, and so he can't miss the gate. He then told Byung-chul that he thinks they should leave with the two porters. Surprised, Byung-chul asked him if he's serious. Bong-gu replied yes. It's a D-rank gate, so there shouldn't be any problems, and the two of them should be enough. He whispered to Byung-chul that actually, he needs to pay for his mother's hospital bills, his siblings' academy fees, and school trip costs this week. Byung-chul agreed since it's only a D-rank gate at most. He told him they should just be extra careful and go. Bong-gu thanked him for understanding. Byung-chul shyly told him there's no need to thank him. They also have that ranked hunter too, though he won't be of help to their combat power anyway. So if they have him carry luggage with the porters, it would solve the luggage problem. From their conversation, Gang-jun realized there is one more person. Byung-chul then turned around shouting at someone. Hey, waist rank. Why aren't you running? I just asked you to buy 1 cup of coffee. The guy, running and breathing heavily with coffee in his hand, gave Byung-chul the coffee. Gang-jun wondered if you can treat hunters lower ranked than you like servants indeed. Earth has become no different from the Annex continent, where the strong prey on the weak. It somehow leaves a bitter taste. Byung-chul dropped his bag and asked, why isn't everyone getting ready? Or does it look like they are leaving tomorrow? He told the waist rank to just fall back and help carry the luggage. There's no way that old geezer and the scrawny kid can carry luggage properly. The kid was about to refuse, but Byung-chul told him not to talk rubbish. They let him tag along, and he dares talk back, despite being a waist rank. Frankly, he just get in the way up front anyway. He then looked at Gang-jun. Hey, you clueless one. Gang-jun asked if he's calling him a clueless one. He replied yes. I am warning you, I don't have time to worry about your life in there, so don't slow us down. Same goes for you, old man. Dalso was holding in his disgust. The guy's insolent behavior was getting on his nerves. The waist rank told Gang-jun and Dalso that he'll carry the heaviest luggage. Even though he's an F rank, he's still an awakener. He may not help in combat, but he can easily handle a few bags. Yang-jun told him okay, then picked up the small bag. He paused and stared at the guy. The guy asked shyly why he's looking at him like that. Gang-jun then walked closer to him. He said to the guy, let me give you some advice. I really need to make money today, so I'm not interested in any troublesome business. The guy, surprised, asked Gang-jun, what does he mean? With a sharp tone, Gang-jun told him to act thoroughly until the end today. He should keep pretending to be naive and weak, just as he's doing now. He should just help them carry luggage and quietly go home. He then told Dalso they should leave. Minutes later, they arrived at the gate entrance. Gang-jun saw Bong-gu giving his info to a man. The man confirmed their details and confirmed their reservation for the gate near Guro Digital Complex Station, and they can now enter the gate. But he warned them that even though it is only a D-rank gate, there have been multiple deaths in it recently, and the Management Bureau has selected the place for investigation. Though the difficulty isn't high, they're not sure, and so the 5 of them stepped into the gate. As soon as Gang-jun stepped inside, a system message appeared. Starting player information registration. Quantifying players' combat power. Loading players' achievements 80% loaded. Players' physical abilities exceed specifications. Cannot load accurate values. Players' information registration complete. As they walked inside the gate, they saw dead trees around. Byung-chul commented, saying the place feels off somehow. He then asked Bong-gu if it's true that undead-type monsters appear in the gate. Bong-gu replied yes, and they need to clear it quickly. Suddenly, a system window appeared in front of Gang-jun. He had no idea what it was. From the panel, we could see that his class is Necromancer. He is currently at level 1. His titles are Ultimate Necromancer, SS rank Dimensional Invader, SS rank Demon Slayer, S rank Dragon Slayer, S rank Plunderer of the World Tree, S rank. His strength is unknown, his agility unknown, his stamina unknown, his magic unknown, and divine power unknown. He has 0 unallocated stat points. His own vassals are also unknown. His player level is too low to summon vassals. Gang-jun saw his level 1 to be complete nonsense, because even he has trouble gauging his own strength, so he wondered who dared quantify it like that. What's more, he had no idea what the divine power he's seeing there meant. He also saw the titles that he obtained in Annex. He deemed them interesting, since Ultimate Necromancer must be the title he got when his dark magic reached the 9th circle. Then Dimensional Invader is probably from when he inadvertently plunged multiple dimensions into crises while searching for a way back to Earth. And as for Demon Slayer, though he hasn't counted them, The number of demon species he has personally killed must exceed several millions. The Dragon Slayer title must be from killing the dragon back then, and for Plunderer of the World Tree. He never expected them to make a title out of pulling the divine tree from the spirit realm. He just took it to plant in the palace garden because it felt empty, but he didn't know it would wither quickly. Something then caught his attention. Own vassals. He wondered if it meant he can summon the familiars he has made vassal contracts with. Not just also but also the ministers of the imperial household, palace marshal's office and treasury. If he can summon them all to earth, it would really be convenient. But then Banchel shouted at him. He told Gang Jun that they're about to enter a place where life and death hang in the balance. Yet he's just spacing out. From the start, Gang Jun didn't say much. He told him they should move out. Yong Chul told Bungu they should clear the dungeon quickly and leave this place, since it's really disgusting. Bungu agreed. Gang Jun wondered if they should just follow them or deviate. As for Dulso, he whispered to Gang Jun that the place feels surprisingly cozy. It's almost as if his weary body and mind are being healed. Gang Jun also agreed. He thought to himself that this place must be where undead-type monsters appear. It's similar to the Deadlands, which were classified as forbidden zones on the Anax continent. He smiled at how refreshing and pleasant it's been for once. Since arriving on Earth, Bungu then told everyone to stop. It's time to work. Bungu activated his energy as they sighted undead from a distance. Bungu activated his magic and shot it at one of the undead, which immediately attracted the attention of the other undead. Gang Jun was quite amazed to see them using magic against the undead. He deemed their battle to be interesting. Although it's lousy, at least it looks the part. Though they struggled a bit, they cleared the undead in that area. Bungu told the porters they should collect the magic stones, and then move on. The porters did as instructed, picking the magic stones, and so they continued their journey. But this time around more of the undead appeared. Byong Chul was the tank while Bungu was the damage dealer. Byong Chul was pissed since they kept coming out of nowhere, refusing to die. But then Gang Jun told him he'd better watch himself this time, because there are some archers mixed in among the undead. Byung Chul told him to stop saying nonsense. But then to his surprise, multiple arrows were shot at them, and he was able to react in time to block them. But one arrow slipped past him, heading directly to Gang Jun. They all thought it would kill him, but they were surprised to see he grabbed it before it could reach him. Bungu was surprised. Byong Chul told him not to be surprised. He just got lucky. Kong Jun slammed the arrow on the ground and asked if they're planning to keep spacing out like that. He scolded them, saying he almost got killed because of them. Bungu realized that Gang Jun indeed almost died, but he wondered if him grabbing the arrow was really luck. Immediately another horde of undead came, charging at them, so Bungu decided to take care of them, before thinking about whether it was luck or not. While the two were fighting, Gang Jun was flicking Dalso's head, though Dalso was in pain. Gang Jun told him they should go one more round. He's thinking of going with Rock this time. Of course he might change his mind. Dalso begged, please. No more. Gang Jun asked. Why not? It's fun. Dalso refused, saying he's the only one getting hit. He should kill him already. Then Gang Jun told him to come on. It might be different this time. Now if he doesn't put one out, he loses. The waist rank guy was speechless as he watched them both. He said to himself, that Gang Jun has been rubbing him the wrong way for a while now. He's acting like he knows something. Could he be someone sent from the administration bureau? Gang Jun asked also what he's going to put out next. Also pleaded, please. My lord, let's do this honorably. Gang Jun scolded, what are you saying? I'm being unfair. Whatever. I've decided I'm going with Rock. The guy changed his mind as he saw their behavior. He knew the administration bureau wouldn't send some lunatic like that. He turned, waiting to strike. Since they were almost at the location, the two finally defeated the last of the undead. But as they were about to head back, the waist rank guy noticed a castle ahead of them. Then suddenly, they all got a message about discovering a hidden dungeon, monastery of the demon worshippers. They were all surprised to see it's a hidden dungeon, because hidden dungeons are places where you can strike it rich, high-value items, or spell books, all kinds of rare treasures, or even an elixir, the otherworldly cure-all. Bunga thought if things go well, he might get the item he wants the most. An elixir, the only medicine that can cure his brain-dead mother. He never considered using an elixir, because elixirs at the auction house have astronomical prices. But if one actually appears in the hidden dungeon, then it's his chance, though he wants to try. He don't know about the others. He told them all that it's a hidden dungeon. So what should they do? Byung-chul was still looking at the message pop up. He told Bungu that it's his first time seeing one of them in person. If they report it to the management bureau by the book, they'll just get a small reward and lose their raid rights. Bungu suggested they should clear the hidden dungeon. While they're at it, Byung-chul was hesitant. He questioned if they can clear it with their available party, since only the two of them have real combat power. Bungu persuaded, saying they should be able to clear it since it's just a D-rank gates. Hidden dungeon anyway. Byung-chul agreed, then told him they should give it a shot while they're at it. In his mind, he hoped they could score big from the opportunity so he can retire. He then asked Gangjun and also if they'll participate. Gangjun realized they'll be working overtime, so he requested extra pay by Angel. Promised to pay 5 times the promised amount. Gangjun immediately calculated the original pay is 300,001. So 5 times would be 1,500,001. And for the two of them, it would be 3,000,001. He then agreed to the deal. The other guy also agreed. And so they decided to start the raid right away. As they walked towards the castle, the waist rank guy had an evil grin on his face, definitely up to something sketchy. They arrived at the gate, though it has an eerie feeling about it. They decided to enter anyway. The door opened, and they all walked in. The room was too dark, but they walked in anyway. Then suddenly the door behind them closed by itself. This really surprised them. They thought they're trapped in the castle. But then the light in front of them lit up immediately. Byung-chul went to try the door first, but it won't open no matter how hard he tried. So he deduced that it looks like it won't open until they clear the dungeon. Bungu told him they came to clear it anyway, so they should go deeper inside. Gangjun looked at the door, though he wasn't scared since it's probably just a barrier. Spell at most if that doesn't work. He'll just tear through it by force. After walking for a while, they were surprised to see there not even a single ant on their way, let alone monsters. But then they were shocked to see so many dead bodies on the ground. It was obvious there must have been a battle, but it looks like both sides were annihilated. The waist rank guy with a surprised expression pointed at a statue. It was a demon. Gangjun was surprised. He wondered what the hell it is. He had definitely seen it somewhere before, but couldn't remember where. Then they noticed something written on a stone. They couldn't translate it, since it looks like a language from another world. Gangjun told Dalso to decode it. Dalso did as instructed. He told them all that it's a language from the demon realm. He adjusted his glasses and started reading. First pass the trial and prove your minimum qualification. He told them that the trial was probably to fight and survive against the monsters guarding the place, and since the monsters are all dead, they've already passed the trial. The second is to offer 10 living people as sacrifices on the altar to prove your loyalty and faith. Then the revered gatekeeper of hell shall descend. Kneel before him and bow your head to beg for forgiveness. Only those who receive permission may return alive. Dalso told them it seems interesting. It's an altar with demons summoning magic cast on it, and it summons a fairly high-ranking demon. Byung-chul scolded, "You senile old fool. What nonsense are you spouting?" Dalso told him to look at the candles. Those are hellfire, also known as tribulation flames, eternal flames that burn using dark magic derived from life force. As a medium, they're commonly used as catalysts for summoning demons. Candles that size would require about one person's life force each, but 9 of the 10 candles are already burning. So 9 people have already been sacrificed. If they sacrifice one more, a demon will appear, and they have to summon the demon and beg it nicely, so they can get out according to the stone tablet. That's how it should be interpreted. Bianca looked back. "You don't all actually believe this nonsense, do you?" The waist rank guy then stepped forward with a sinister smile. He told them they should decide. He asked Byung-chul if he's suggesting they all stay trapped in the room and die together. Either way, one of us has to die. The atmosphere immediately changed. The aura from the guy completely shifted. He laughed out loud continuously and frantically. "You crazy bastard," Byung-chul scolded. "Why are you laughing?" The guy apologized. "Everyone's frozen faces look so pathetic and funny. I couldn't help myself. Now we need to decide who becomes the sacrifice. Who among us is the most useless person?" Bongo told him no. If they look carefully, there must be a way for all of them to survive. Byung-chul couldn't refute it. He told them all that although that bastard's words sound crazy, if someone really has to die, it should be someone who's lived long enough. Dalso looked back. He wondered why everyone was looking at him. He thought about it, someone who's lived enough. Are they talking about him? He paused as he realized he's not even human in the first place. Oh, then he wondered if they're talking about his lord, who's over 300 years old in Earth years. He then whispered to Gang Jun, "Those insolent fools seem to be targeting you, as someone who's lived long enough." But Gang Jun brutally told him they're talking about him. Dulce was surprised me. "Are you sure they clearly said someone who's lived long enough?" Gang Jun told him he is the one they're talking about, so he should just stay quiet. Bonga told them not to jump to conclusions. They should find a way for all of them to survive. But Byong Chul scolded, "You bastard. You want to play saint even now? I am not saying anything wrong. At this rate we'll all be trapped here and die." Damn it, he slammed the wall. "Hidden dungeon, or whatever. If you hadn't tempted us in the first place, we wouldn't have come here." Bongu told everyone to calm down. Blaming each other now won't change anything. Byung Chul's attitude shifted. He told Bongu that if he wants to play hypocrite until the end, then he should just die in their place. Surprised, Bongu asked what he meant. Byung Chul grinned, "Don't you like the option either?" But then they heard laughter coming from the waist rank guy again. "What a delightful spectacle," he commented with a sinister grin. "When people are cornered, that's when they reveal their ugly nature. There's no need to bicker among yourselves. So you can stop now," he continued. "I was planning to kill all of you from the start anyway." He then activated his dark magic and chanted a spell. Suddenly the aura he emitted began seeping into the bodies of the dead on the ground, and they all started standing up. Bonga was shocked to see he was a necromancer. Byong Chul insulted waist rank. "You bastard, don't tell me you've been pretending all this while." The guy grinned wildly, his voice echoing throughout the room. "You finally caught on, yes. I'm a hunter-killer, affiliated with the Anti-Management Bureau Alliance, and I am not a waist rank. I'm a rank, meaning I am a great being, fundamentally different from vermin like you." Hearing he's from the Anti-Management Bureau, Byong Chul immediately lost all hope of surviving, because unlike the Hunter Management Bureau, established for peace and public welfare, those bastards claim that people with special powers should monopolize wealth and power. If that's the case, Byung Chul realized that the bastard is a murderer who hunts hunters affiliated with the Bureau. He looked behind him. The undead were approaching. He counted they were more than 30, and they had to face a rank murderer on top of that. Seeing this, he gave up. He told Bongu there's no chance of winning. Bongu tried telling him they should at least try fighting, but Byong Chul told him it's over. "They're already dead." The guy grinned wildly. "A very commendable attitude. Just accept your fate and become sacrifices for the great cause." But then Gong Jun told him to wait. "Wait a minute, it'd be a bit problematic to kill those guys right now, since they still owe me money." Gang Jun threw the bag on the ground, saying, "And didn't I warn you earlier that it'd be best to just keep acting until the end? Just for today, pissed." The guy asked Gang Jun if he's from the Management Bureau. Gang Jun replied no. He asked, "Then where are you from?" Gang Jun replied again, "My house is in Sinrim-dong." Seeing that Gang Jun wasn't inclined to reveal his affiliation, he decided to ask Gang Jun again, "How exactly did you get here?" Gang Jun replied, "By public transportation. By a bus that goes straight from Sinrim Station." Angry, he told Gang Jun, "It seems like they're not communicating at all." Gang Jun commented, "You complain even when I answer anyway. What are you planning to do by summoning a demon?" The guy walked up to the statue and told Gang Jun that the being he is summoning is one of the 72 demons ruling the demon realm, Lord Marvis, the great demon. Confident, he continued, "After pledging loyalty to Lord Marvis and forming a vassal contract, I'll borrow his immense power, and together with the Anti-Management Bureau Alliance members, we'll reconstruct the world order." Though Gang Jun was no longer paying attention to what he was saying, he recalled the name Marvis. Now he realized why the statue looked familiar. Earlier, he was sure he killed most of the 72 demons from the demon realm, dimension he invaded with his own hands. But it seems like Marba was one of the ones who escaped and survived back then. Now the guy told Gang Jun that he'll have to die for the great cause. He then gathered all the undead. Byung Chul already accepted his fate. He's gonna die emptily in such a place. Bongu apologized to everyone. His greed led them to their deaths. Gang Jun stepped forward. He told him they'll all die someday, but not today. If you're going to die, you should pay me my wages first. He then activated his energy. The swirling force engulfed the room. They all couldn't believe their eyes. The guy was shocked. He had no idea how Gang Jun was able to use dark magic, even if it's the same dark magic as his. The level is far different. Gang Jun's energy penetrated his eyes. That's when he saw it, a death god. Fear soaked his body like sweat. He fell to the ground knowing he had to run. Gang Jun then told Dalso to command the undead to show respect. Immediately Dalso stretched out his hand and said with vigor, "The catastrophe beyond measure. King of the dead who rules and governs the living. The great immortal, they should show respect to his majesty." The emperor immediately, all the undead went to their knees and bowed. The moment those death knights dropped to their knees, the atmosphere went from dark fantasy to divine comedy. A whole army of armored nightmares bowing to Gang Jun. Yeah, the same Gang Jun who just wanted to be an anonymous nobody. Looked like the universe's biggest inside joke. Even he blinked twice, wondering if he'd accidentally subscribed to godhood. Dalso stood off to the side, equal parts amazed and existentially tired. Bonga's brain was buffering, and he looked one bad heartbeat away from uninstalling reality. The villain, once loud and arrogant, was suddenly trembling before Gang Jun, mumbling apologies that even he didn't believe. The so-called god of death just sighed, wearing that tired look of someone who's been accidentally overpowered by life itself. He said he was sick of the drama, of standing out, of being worshipped, of cosmic nonsense. All he wanted was peace and quiet. Maybe a cup of tea without someone trying to sacrifice a continent. Then he placed his hand on the villain's shin. Because of course, nothing says terrifying deity like a casual kneecap grab, and stared straight into his eyes. In that instant the temperature of the cave seemed to drop. Mystic Eyes also recognized it immediately. The advanced illusion technique that shredded sanity like old receipts. The stronger the caster, the uglier the nightmare. And the poor fool who stood before Gang Jun was now groaning, thrashing, and rolling on the ground like his soul was trapped in a blender. Bonga, who moments ago thought this villain was unbeatable, now stood frozen, watching the man's pride disintegrate. His thoughts were loud enough to echo. Who in the world is Gang Jun? And why does reality obey him like a nervous intern? Gang Jun's gaze flicked toward Bongu, the kind of look that rearranges your priorities. He noted how the kid was still standing, which by Gang Jun's standards counted as progress. It almost sounded like praise. Right up until Gang Jun's expression said otherwise. He asked if Bongu wanted to be in the shoes of the bad guy. On the floor, Bongu replied, "No, sir." Gang Jun said, "All right. Then he must never speak of what happened just now to anyone." Also forever efficient. Suggested finishing the job. Killing the witness and cleaning up would be logical. Bongu's spirit nearly left his body at the suggestion, but Gang Jun waved it off. Death was boring, a gag spell would do. One that made anyone who dared speak the truth drop dead on the spot. The villain's screams faded into background ambience as the ritual began. The undead, obedient as ever, lifted his limp body to the altar. Blood spilled freely, candles trembled in excitement. The whole cave started shaking like the world was buffering, an update it didn't ask for. From the stone statue a voice began to echo, a heavy ancient sound drenched in ego. The demon Marba arrived, radiating theatrics like a one-man opera. His speech dragged on about vengeance, ancient betrayal, lost brothers, and the usual infernal trauma. Gang Jun, somewhere between unimpressed and mildly nostalgic, realized he'd heard this voice before. And then it hit him. Oh, it was that demon, the one who used to rule Hell's schedule before Gang Jun wrecked it. Marvis froze mid-sentence. Recognition dawned. That voice. The immortal himself. The same being who'd once dismantled his entire world, like a bored editor cutting filler arcs. Gang Jun smirked, the kind of calm that made thunder look insecure. He didn't even need to say much. His expression did the talking. The mighty gatekeeper of hell, the demon among demons, was now a trembling mess, begging for permission to exist. And Gang Jun, in his infinite irony, actually allowed it, told him to leave. To live quietly, the absurd mercy of a man who could end worlds, but just wanted to clock out early. Marvis bowed, almost crying from relief, muttering gratitude as he prepared to escape. And that's when Gang Jun's mind drifted to something completely unrelated. He remembered reading once that pets improved children's emotional intelligence, something about empathy, IQ, and furry companionship. A dangerous spark flickered in his eyes. Just as Marvis turned toward his freedom, Gang Jun stopped him with two words that shattered the room. "Bark for me." The demon froze, his infernal brain struggling to process whether this was a command or cosmic trolling. Gang Jun's expression remained calm, the way only someone truly chaotic could manage. And so began the most humiliating moment in demonic history. Marvis barked loudly, hesitatingly. Then with effort, each sound echoing like a funeral for dignity. Dulce observed quietly, clearly taking mental notes on divine cruelty. Gang Jun nodded, evaluating him like a disappointed dog trainer. He even praised the effort. Said the demon looked like a dog now. Dulce agreed, deadpan, as ever. Because apparently reality had no standards anymore. Inside, Marvis was screaming. The once feared demon lord of 72 realms, now reduced to a panting embarrassment. His pride burned hotter than hellfire. But his body obeyed. Sweat dripped from his horns as Gang Jun smiled. Genuinely pleased, he told the demon he'd passed the first test, then asked if he could shapeshift. Marvis hesitated. Inside, he cursed every law of creation that led him here. He was once called by the terrifying Monica, gatekeeper of hell, a name that made angels request early retirement. Marba, one of the 72 apex demons, a being who once reduced kingdoms to smoke, now stood trembling before a man who didn't even button his shirt properly. But right now, the mighty demon lord was being asked to audition as a pet dog. Life was cruel. He shapeshifted instantly, fur rippling into place as he landed as a small brown puppy. How about this, he asked. Gang Jun tilted his head like a fashion critic, judging a disaster on the runway. Definitely cute, but something was off. No, he decided, with the kind of authority that could ruin careers. Also trying to be diplomatic. Muttered something about proportions and princess preferences, as if the princess's taste mattered more than Marvis's dignity. Marvis, meanwhile, was screaming internally, "You filthy mortals! How dare you judge a creature who once commanded hellfire?" Still, Gang Jun wasn't satisfied. He clapped once, radiating the kind of energy teachers have before giving surprise tests. Change again in an instant. Marvis turned into a fluffy white dog. Gang Jun's eyes squinted. Next. Now a shaggy one. Next. Now a teddy bear-looking thing. Next. Now a short-tailed mutt that looked like it regretted its bloodline. Next, by the 7th transformation, Marvis's patience had gone on strike. He reverted to the very first puppy, glaring so hard that even gods would file complaints. His eyes screamed it louder than words ever could. What the actual hell is wrong with this human? Gang Jun cocked his head, unimpressed, and asked what exactly Marvis thought he was doing, because someone had to say it out loud. Was this a tantrum, a protest, or a very dramatic audition for canine misery? Marvis replied no. He wouldn't dare to do so. Then he continued the audition. After few changes, he turned to a particular dog. Upon seeing this, Gang Jun blinked, then gasped in enlightenment. Oh, this one, perfect. He started patting Mabbit's head, rubbing behind the ears, like he just discovered heaven's softest pillow. Inside, Marvis was vibrating between wrath and bliss. How dare you treat one of the 72 demon pillars like a lap dog? Wait, what's this? Why does this feel nice? His tail betrayed him, twitching once a small wag of sin. He froze ashamed. But that single movement sold his soul to the pet life. Gang Jun, oblivious, turned to Dulce and Bongu. So what do you think? Dulce nodded as he said it was a perfect compromise. Bongu, who clearly wanted no part in this madness, muttered that it looked wonderful. And that was that. Gang Jun carried Marvis in his arms like a spoiled child's toy, stroking his fur while walking. The once feared demon felt humiliated. And yet, why does this warmth feel so damn good? But before they could leave, Bonga spoke up. With that annoying voice of reason everyone hates in a drama, he reminded them that the corpse from earlier was kind of important, and shouldn't just be left there like discarded pizza. Gang Jun sighed. Trouble, paperwork, public attention, EW. He hated all of it. He wasn't even technically a hunter anymore, just a man allergic to attention. And so, like the manipulative genius he was, he turned the spotlight onto Bongo. Hey, you were amazing earlier. Thanks for saving my life. Fonga blinked. What saving? Whose life is this man? Okay. Is there a hidden camera? But Gang Jun went on, spinning pure PR magic to subdue such a vicious criminal in one blow. Impressive work. Bongo froze inside his brain. 12 processors spun simultaneously, trying to figure out Gang Jun's 12D chess move. He's pushing the credit onto me so he can vanish unnoticed. Damn it, he's good. He stammered out a humble acceptance. But Gang Jun smiled. Sharp kid. He'll go far soon after. They handled the body and went back to Earth through the portal. The aftermath was a chaotic mix of reality and farce, with barricades and soldiers marking the street, like a crime scene set by an overzealous director. Hunters' bodies were rushed in ambulances, their faces pale, eyes shut, their life and death struggle, reduced to motionless forms on stretchers. Bongo, the one who had taken down the villain, sat at a nearby table, pen hovering, nervously scribbling his statement. The officer leaned close, relief dripping from every pore, telling him how glad he was that everyone survived, that no major injuries had occurred. The corpse had been identified, a wanted murderer tied to the Anti-Management Bureau Alliance, and now a special unit would investigate. They would need Bongo for additional input. He agreed, though inside his mind a storm of disbelief brewed. Then came the real punch. Once the investigation was complete, the case would go public. Bongo's mind stalled. Reported publicly, his chest tightened, disbelief hammering through him. If it weren't for Gang Jun, they'd all be cold corpses. Nothing but corpses sprawled in the street, and he felt it in his bones. The officer leaned closer, voice dropping like a blade in a dark alley. Had Bongo undergone a second awakening recently? The report claimed. He had subdued the Anti-Management Bureau hunter single-handedly. Bongo stammered, trying to downplay it, muttering about luck. The officer, who clearly had a flair for understatement, warned him humility could be poison, that at some point he should accept his praise. And then, almost conspiratorially, whispered about the bounty on the villain's head. Hundreds of million with the promise of guild contacts. Once the news hit, star material headline screaming C. Rank rookie subdues a rank murderer. National hero Kim Bongo. Bongo blinked at the absurdity. His thoughts tangled between awe and panic, grateful yet utterly bewildered. And all the while his mental nod went to Gang Jun, the shadow behind the miracle. Meanwhile, Gang Jun was across the street, living his best broke man life, chewing spicy dakbaki from a street stall. He bit into it, flinched, and said it wasn't that spicy. His lips, however, were conducting a ritual of fire, also half crying from the heat. Refused to stop eating. My tongue feels nothing, he muttered, but my soul is burning beautifully. Gang Jun asked Marvis, now sitting like a depressed fur ball on the ground, if demons made this kind of torture food. Marvis, terrified, shook his head so fast he nearly unsummoned himself. Gang Jun grinned. Good. Next time we'll try fire chicken. Stir-fried noodles. Dulce looked at him, like a man hearing his death sentence read in high definition. Bongo stared at them from across the street. He stood where he was, still processing the universe. Who was this Gang Jun? A man who made demons beg and a rank hunters evaporate. A man disguised as a nobody. Maybe a fugitive, maybe a god. Maybe an idiot, hard to tell. But one thing was clear: Bongo had to get close to him. Become his disciple, learn his secret. Because if life ever gave him another chance, he'd rather wag his tail in strength than bow his head in fear. The bureaucratic mess settled, and it was time for payment. Bongo handed Gang Jun the agreed sum. Careful, respectful. Gang Jun counted, eyebrows raising ever so slightly. Too much. Bongo shrugged, logical and simple. He saved their lives. This was the least they could do. Gang Jun pocketed the money with an almost imperceptible nod. Instructions clear, use it well. Meet again if fate allowed. Doso, ever patient. Agreed, time to move on. But Bongo, heart thumping, asked for just a moment more. A meal at least. Gang Jun waved it off. Family waiting, duty calling. The world turning without pause. Bongo's internal plea was desperate. Catch him just a moment, a drink. 30 minutes, an hour, at most. Soju. The word froze Gang Jun in place. Gang Jun asked if it was really the soju he was thinking of, and Bongo, ever the optimist, replied that it probably was. Gang Jun looked up, as if the ceiling itself had just confirmed a divine revelation. Earth had soju, humanity at least had done one thing right. He said that. Back in his last days as the emperor of the Onyx continent, he had tried every liquor under the sun. The richest, rarest, and most pompous ones served in cups made of ego and gold. Old, yet none came close to the taste of soju. He tried to recreate it with royal breweries, divine brewers, even some illegal alchemists, but the flavor refused to be reborn. And now, sitting here on Earth, he decided fate owed him a drink. The trio found a nearby restaurant, took their seats, and before anyone could count to 3, glasses of soju were already half gone. Gang Jun took a sip, and his face went through the 5 stages of enlightenment. The heat, the spice, the nostalgia. Everything collided in his mouth like a reunion of bad decisions. He declared inwardly that this was it. Earth had redeemed itself. Dulce, meanwhile, was experiencing something else entirely. As the vampire lord chewed into a spicy dish, his eyes watered like a sinner's baptism. He declared that the food was hot, delicious and painful, a lava bath for mortals. Yet for him the flavor was a forgotten memory. How long had it been since he last tasted blood? This food, this devilish dish, burned like sin and tasted like forgiveness. Watching the two of them perform culinary sermons, Bongo wondered what he'd gotten himself into. They looked like men who just discovered food after 10 years in exile. He muttered that maybe he should order more, because clearly starvation wasn't the issue. But obsession was the moment, he asked. Both of them lit up with joy. He turned to the old lady running the restaurant, the Ajumma, and asked for another bottle of soju and one more bowl of rice soup. The woman, half done with her patience, shouted a confirmation and turned to leave. But before she could take 2 steps, also called out to her. His tone had the kind of seriousness reserved for royal decrees and misplaced romantic confidence. He thanked her for her hard work and urged her to take care of herself, saying health was more important than anything. The woman blinked, frowned, and decided she was witnessing a lunatic's performance. She asked if this old man was hitting on her, if he was trying to sweet-talk her. She said he should just eat quietly, Dulso undeterred, solemnly promised that he would never take such a valuable, blood-sacrificed meal lightly. He would eat it all with reverence. The woman froze blood, she frowned deeper, and walked off, muttering about strange old men. Dulso, on the other hand, was moved to tears. He truly believed the old lady had poured her life essence into the meal. He whispered inwardly that she was a saint in disguise. Bongo glanced at him and sighed. Sir, are you crying right now? He didn't say it aloud, but his face said everything. This man had clearly lived a very dramatic life. Then Gang Jun looked over and asked why Bongo wasn't eating. Bongo replied that he was slowly, only to be interrupted when Gang Jun, with his usual lack of attention to mortal details, called him Bong sick. Bongo corrected him, saying it was Bongo, not Bong sick. Gang Jun waved a hand like he was clearing bugs from his memory, and said fine. He told him to stop calling him sir and just call him young. Bongo nodded, glad to finally earn casual treatment from a man who might as well be a divine landlord. Then Bongo hesitated and asked if Gang Jun would accept him as his disciple. Gang Jun didn't even blink before replying no. Bongo sighed, of course. Classic rejection, speed faster than light, colder than logic, but he didn't stop there. He poured a cup of soju onto the floor like an offering to fate and began his tragic backstory. He said he used to be an F-rank hunter. Gang Jun sighed internally. He could already smell the sob story coming. He hated them, but since Bongo had paid for the food, he decided to listen out of basic meal etiquette. Bongo explained how he stayed a hunter to support his little sister's tuition and his mother's hospital bills. His mother was sick and the only cure was an elixir, the legendary cure-all, but it was priceless, rare, and guarded by reality itself. Gang Jun froze mid-sip of elixir. He had dozens of those back in the Inuk's imperial treasury, stashed like casual party favors. Too bad he hadn't brought any to Earth. He cursed his own lack of foresight. The one time he could have flexed usefully. Bongo continued, saying elixirs sold for hundreds of billions, maybe trillions. Gang Jun muttered that he really should have packed 1 or 2 next to his socks. Bongo blinked, confused by the comment, but Gang Jun waved him off, telling him to continue. Bongo said he kept raiding gates with his weak body because it was the only way to find one. Gang Jun looked him up and down like a disappointed coach and asked inwardly how that noodle physique had survived anything. Bongo admitted he'd nearly died many times, but somehow made it to C rank. Gang Jun nodded. Sounded exactly like the opening chapters of every tragic protagonist novel ever. By the time Bongo started crying about needing strength to save his mother, Gang Jun had emotionally clocked out. But Bongo bowed down, begging him to take him as a disciple. Gang Jun stared at him like a teacher whose student just confessed to eating the homework. He called him Bong Wan this time, asking why a grown man was crying in public. Bongo corrected him again, saying it was Bongo, not Bong Wan. Gang Jun just sighed and told him to stand straight like a man. Then he asked if Bongo could really do anything. He said Bongo, sniffling but determined, said yes, absolutely. Gang Jun nodded thoughtfully, then listed the great trials of becoming his disciple: cleaning laundry, cooking, shower care, and dog walking. Bongo hesitated, wondering how that list was supposed to make him stronger, but he agreed anyway. Gang Jun poured him more soju and declared that the deal was sealed. Then, as if the chaos wasn't enough, Gang Jun asked if he could borrow Bong Gu's name. And his hunter license Bong Gu blinked in confusion, asking why he needed his name. Gang Jun explained it would save money on license fees, and he could raid gates under Bongo's name, while taking care of the monsters himself. A win-win, he said. Fame for Bongo, peace for him. Sometime later, outside the restaurant, Marvis sat like a sulking celebrity in the body of a puppy. Two ladies spotted him and squealed at how cute he looked. They bent down, petting him like he was a living stress ball. Inside his head, Marvis fumed. Insolent fools, how dare they touch him like some common pet. But when one of them said how soft his fur was, his brain short-circuited between fury and guilty pleasure. Then one lady dropped a dog treat, saying she'd share one from her baby's stash. Marvis turned his face away like he didn't care, projecting pure royal disdain. But as soon as they left, he sniffed it, took a bite, and instantly regretted how good it tasted. Such trashy snacks, he thought. Yet somehow divine Marvis was demolishing the snack, like it had personally insulted his ancestors. And every bite released a flavor explosion so intense, it felt like he was eating a full-course meal condensed into a single, overachieving snack. It wasn't just food anymore. It was philosophy, sin, and pleasure packaged in fried glory. He thought, so this is what bliss tastes like. Destruction seasoned with depravity. Gang Jun showed up right in time to ruin the moment, asking what exactly Marvis thought he was doing. The demon lord, caught like a kid with crumbs on his soul, dropped the bone and muttered that he was just checking something. Gang Jun didn't bother prying. He simply told him to keep doing whatever unholy ritual he was performing. Then out of nowhere, Gang Jun sighed and looked toward Bong Gu, the man who was currently proving that alcohol and dignity are mortal enemies. Bong Gu had passed out cold after a few bottles of soju, lying there like a deflated ego. Dulso, ever the responsible psychopath, was carrying him like a corpse, and asked if he should just kill the guy for discipline's sake. Gang Jun, ever the saint of sarcasm, told him no, let's not add murder to the dinner menu. Dulso grumbled that Lady Su Bin wouldn't approve, but Gang Jun shrugged. Leaving a drunk man on the street would be worse PR than a public execution. Dulso glared at the sleeping Bongo and muttered that the guy was clearly having a nightmare. Eternal rest, he said, would clean him up nicely. Gang Jun just sighed. There it was again. Dulso's love language, homicide. He told him to chill, so Gang Jun, being Gang Jun, placed a hand on Bongo's head and decided to do the opposite of killing him. He was going to use dream manipulation and ancient, dark magic from the dream demons. Dulso had learned the basics once, barely enough to invade a toddler's nap, and yet his lord was already using it like a bedtime god. He thought, as expected of my lord. Too powerful, too casual. Too much. Gang Jun just brushed it off, saying he merely nudged the guy's dream a bit. If reality is trash, at least let the man have a good dream while he's alive. Inside Bongo's dream, things took a sentimental detour. He found himself by a river throwing stones like a kid. Then came his father's voice, gentle and warm. Too warm for a guy whose entire existence had been chaos. His father told him he was proud. Bongo froze, realizing his dad was long dead. Yet here he was alive, smiling, patting his head, telling him to be strong, to protect his mother and siblings. The scene unfolded like a miracle, stitched from memories. His younger self begged his dad not to leave again. He promised he'd never complain about fishing trips, never whine about mountain climbs, never say he was bored. He just wanted more time. Then his mom's voice called them for dinner. And there she was, healthy, radiant, serving food like heaven. Took cooking classes. His father laughed, saying they should go out more often. His mom smiled, saying the kids loved it. Bongo cried through the entire dream, calling out to them, saying the food was delicious, and that he could finally protect them now. But dreams are cruel things. The illusion dissolved, fading like ash in wind. Bongo found himself by a fireplace, hearing a voice call him, someone telling him to wake up because dried pollock soup was ready. He blinked, disoriented, as reality clawed its way back outside. Dulso's voice cut through. Should we just kill him so he can sleep forever? Gang Jun sighed like a tired babysitter. Why was this man so addicted to murder? He told Dulso to wait, let the guy wake up and eat with them. Inside the dream, Bong Gu smiled faintly, whispering that his name wasn't Bong Chan. Then his consciousness broke free. He jolted awake. The first thing he saw was Gang Jun sitting calmly, holding his daughter Seol in his arms. Gang Jun's tone was soft, teasing. asking if his princess had eaten. Seol nodded and said it was yummy. The man who once bullied monsters into submission was now losing to a toddler in a staring contest. Bonggu stared in disbelief. Was this Gangjuan's house, and that child his daughter? Gangjun kept playing with Seol, doing peekaboo and asking who she resembled to be that cute. Seol proudly said Baba. And Gangjun nodded with that smug, of course, face that fathers get when they realize they've won genetics. Then noticing Bonggu's horrified stare, Gangjun froze, his eyes narrowed. Bonggu froze harder. Mutual embarrassment flooded the room. Gangjun asked how long he'd been watching. Bonggu trembled and mentally replayed the entire peekaboo sequence. From our princess to you looking like Baba. That's how far he thought miserably, before the shame could kill him. Subin walked in, saving Bonggu from social death. She noted the smell of alcohol and pointed out that the sun was already high. She'd made dried pollock soup, so he should come eat. Bongo almost cried from gratitude. She was an angel, the goddess of merciful timing. Later they all sat around the table, dishes laid out like a Korean banquet of edible luxury. Bongo realized these people didn't eat meals. They hosted diplomatic feasts. With every bite, trying to redeem himself from his drunken first impression, he praised Subin's cooking like his life depended on it. Surely Gangjun would back him up, right? Wrong. Gangjun frowned and reminded him that Subin wasn't his wife. She was his sister. Bongo's brain blue-screened. He froze, every cell screaming in embarrassment. Perfect. He just flirted with his friend's sister in front of the entire table. Genius, trying to fix the awkwardness. He simply nodded and kept eating quietly. Subin, ever composed, asked if it was true that he and Gangjun had been close since childhood. Bonggu quickly realized this was the story Gangjun must have told her, so he played along, saying yes. They were like brothers. Then Subin, with quiet worry, asked a favor. Could Bonggu look after Gangjun? For a while the man almost choked on his soup. Look after him. The same Gangjun who flicked boss monsters like mosquitoes and casually mastered demonic dream magic. How does one look after a demigod? Subin continued gently, explaining that Gangjun had only recently returned home after being trapped in a gate for nearly a month. Bonggu's mind clicked. Wait. A gate survivor. One of those hunters from the news who came back changed, stronger, different. Before he could process the absurdity, Gangjun casually corrected her, saying they weren't trapped in a gate. Subin tilted her head, pretending to remember. She said that's right. He wasn't stuck in a gate, but was some king of a continent, or whatever. The moment she said that, Bonggu nearly short-circuited. Wait, Gangjun was a king. A whole king? That's insane. But Gangjun never want to settle for mediocrity. Corrected them both, not a king. An emperor, because apparently regular royalty wasn't dramatic enough. Subin rolled her eyes, saying that it's the same thing anyway. Gangjun disagreed immediately. It was not the same thing. Kings couldn't even look him in the eye. He said he was an emperor, a higher species of headache above 100 kings combined. Also, ever the loyal hype man joined in from the corner. My lord, do you remember the former king of Baratheon? Gangjin looked unimpressed and asked who that even was. Also reminded him, the one who dared to make eye contact with his imperial majesty and got beheaded for it. Gangjun snapped his fingers as if recalling a mildly amusing memory. Oh, that guy? Yeah, he died embarrassingly fast. Bonggu sat there stunned. His mind was struggling to keep up. Gangjun wasn't just a king. He was an emperor, and also, if that was true, then also couldn't be just some average bodyguard either. Maybe he was some high-ranking general disguised as a loyal maniac. Subin interrupted his mental chaos, explaining softly that this was exactly what she meant. She asked if Bonggu could see it now. This was what she wanted to tell him. Gangjun was struggling with post-gate effects, adjusting back to normal society. Bonggu nodded quickly. So that's why he walks like gravity owes him rent. It made sense now. He asked cautiously if Dalso had also been some sort of emperor back then. Gangjun replied no. Just a prime minister. Dalso immediately corrected him. An advisor technically. Subin sighed so hard it could have powered a windmill. Everything was going sideways again. She turned to Bonggu, clearly desperate, and asked if he was just playing along with the mood. But still she asked him sincerely to please help Gangjun readjust. Bonggu nodded, saying he would do his best. Because what else could he possibly say to this royal circus? Subin thanked him, relieved. Then she turned to Dalsu and asked if he'd like to try a part-time job. Dalsu smiled like he'd just been invited to slay a dragon. Lady Subin, he said. What kind of job is this, Gangjun? casually mentioned that the convenience store across the street was hiring. Subin had brought it up earlier. They said Dalso could at least come for an interview. Dalso predictably refused immediately. He had a duty to serve his lord and could not leave his side, not even for a moment, but Gang Jun, tired of being worshipped like a deity, told him to go anyway. He thought to himself that it was exhausting having Dalso glued to him all day. Every hour it was the same. My lord this. My lord that. My lord, should I kill him enough? Let the man learn about capitalism and customer service for once. Plus, Gang Jin reasoned, it would help the household finances a little. He told Dalso directly to go for the job. Dalso froze, scandalized. My lord, I cannot abandon you. But Gang Jun smirked and reminded him of his grand promise to build an empire here on earth. Dalso's eyes widened. His lord was testing him. Of course, understanding mortal society would be crucial to ruling it. Dalso's face lit up with terrified inspiration. He fell to his knees and began slamming his forehead on the floor. His lord was testing his loyalty. He begged forgiveness for failing to see his majesty's vision sooner. Gang Jun groaned internally. Here we go again. Dalso continued banging his head, declaring he had no face to gaze upon his emperor's glorious countenance. He swore to crush his unworthy body into dust, if that's what it took to fulfill this mission. Gang Jun told him to calm down. Dalso did not calm down, he just made it worse, shouting that he would devote every breath to this divine investigation. Gang Jun sighed, rubbing his temple, and said fine. He'd take that as a yes. He turned to Subin, asking if she heard it was decided Dalso would take the interview. Thus the legend of Sir Dalso Vanderkrepsley began, an ancient warrior, stepping into the terrifying battlefield of part-time employment. Later Bongo was in the kitchen washing dishes with the focus of a monk. Subin frowned, saying, wasn't he a guest? Why was he doing chores? Gang Jun told her it was fine. Bongo volunteered. Subin wasn't sure if she believed that, but she admitted he was surprisingly good at it. Gang Jun leaned back, flicked the remote, and turned on the TV. The news came on. Anchors discussing gate occurrences in Seoul and Gyeonggi. Apparently, new gates could absorb all living beings within a 2-kilometer radius. Everyone needed to stay alert. Subin tensed immediately. Their house was on the Gangnam side. What if a gate appeared there? Gang Jin waved it off. Nothing would happen. Simple as that. Then Seol called from the floor, happily tapping her favorite doggy, who happened to be Marvis, still stuck in his fluffy punishment form. She told him they should kiss. Gang Jun's expression snapped into full dad mode. Absolutely not kissing with that creature. His internal monologue instantly turned into a list of creative ways to exterminate Marba. Seal blinked, confused. Get hurt? She didn't understand. Meanwhile, Marvis was trembling like a leaf, mentally screaming that he didn't even do anything. He didn't kiss anyone. Ganjin's glare was enough to melt a continent. No kissing, no touching, no proximity. Even petting was suspicious behavior. At this point, Subin smacked Gang Jin on the head and told him to stop bullying animals in front of his daughter. Gang Jin paused, wondering whether he should really consider Marvis an animal. Technically, yes, for Seal's sake, so he let it go. Seal giggled and said she'd just pet the doggy instead. She stroked Marvis's fur gently while he silently prayed for survival. Gang Jun watched her, feeling something tighten in his chest. She was adorable, too pure for the world he knew. And he decided right there, he wasn't going to let this world's filth reach her. By the next morning, Gang Jun handed Subin an envelope filled with cash. She opened it and froze 5 million won. She asked where he even got that kind of money. Gang Jin said he'd checked his old bank account, and surprisingly, the savings he'd made before disappearing 3 years ago were still there. Tears welled in Subin's eyes. She confessed she hadn't told him how bad things had gotten. Utilities, rent, food, everything was crushing her. She thanked him, saying she could finally breathe again. Gang Jun smiled faintly. He didn't really know what to say, so he just muttered that it was a good thing. Subin promised to cook something special for dinner to celebrate. She asked if he wanted anything in particular. Gang Jun said anything was fine. Subin sighed, so blunt as always. She suggested they go grocery shopping together. Maybe stop by a kids' cafe or playground with Seol. Gang Jun shook his head. He needed to rest, but he suggested that Dalso accompany her instead. It would be good protection if anything happened. Subin agreed cheerfully, and soon after she and Dalso left with Seol, Gang Jun waved them off with a smile. The moment the door closed, his expression shifted. Rest. Not a chance. He had zero intention of sleeping. In the next scene, The taxi dropped him off in front of a humble comics cafe, and he stood there nodding to himself. Like a hero returning to a battlefield made of dust and nostalgia. This is it, he thought. The place he'd always wanted to visit back then. When he still had the excuse of being busy ruling an empire now. Now he could walk in like a free man. He muttered something about Hunter. Hunter finally releasing a new volume during his long absence. Meanwhile, over at the mart, Dalso was conducting a holy investigation on behalf of the Empire's stomach. He pointed dramatically at a sign that said Sample Corner and whispered Lady Subin. Behold gourmet food. He picked up a toothpick, stabbed a dumpling, and took a bite like he just won a national lottery. Heaven, he declared. Infinite rations with no tax. The poor staff lady froze, torn between murder and customer service. Subin, who had evolved past human embarrassment at this point, just sighed. Seal giggled beside them, opening her tiny mouth when Dalso offered her a spoonful. Aha, princess approves. Dalso said proudly, as if feeding royalty instead of a toddler. The employee smile was the kind you give when HR tells you to stay calm or lose your job. Subin, still innocent, decided to fix the situation in the best way a child could, by buying something. She asked for a bag of dumplings, and the lady almost cried in relief. But before the transaction could save the peace, the mart radio exploded with panic. Attention, all customers. A large gate has occurred near Seoul and Intersection Station. Cut to the comics cafe. Gang Jin was inside, asking the cashier for the latest volume of Hunter x Hunter, only to be told politely but fatally that it still hasn't come out. Gang Jun blinked. What? His entire divine aura faltered. The cashier, who had no idea he was standing before a centuries-old emperor, shrugged. Yeah, I thought it'd be out when I got discharged from the army. But nope, 3 years later. Still nothing. Gang Jun's eyebrow twitched. 3 years, huh? Try 300. This fool hasn't tasted despair. The guy tried to help by handing him a trending new title. I, the world's weakest, became an SS rank hunter. Gang Jun looked at it like it personally offended him, then sighed and went to the reading booth anyway. As he flipped through the story, he frowned. The main character was weak, poor, and hopelessly similar to Bongo. Except this Bongo wannabe eventually got strong enough to kill a 19th cycle necromancer. Gang Jun stopped reading. Excuse me. His brain said to the universe. Since when can a brat like that beat a 9th cycle necromancer? He closed the comic with the sigh of a god who regretted wasting oxygen. Should have gone to the mart. He thought at least there the embarrassment was free. As his eyes drooped, exhaustion hit him. Sleep had been his enemy for weeks. Every time he closed his eyes, the nightmares came crawling from the ruins of his old world. If only Ariel, that succubus queen, were still around to ease the torment. He wondered briefly how his vassals were doing, before everything faded to white. When he opened his eyes again, snow was falling, mountains stretched endlessly in silence. What the hell, he muttered. System message: you have entered the dimensional gate. Yotan's sanctuary. Gang Jin stared at the air, like someone who just realized he was the plot twist. So it wasn't a dream somehow. Even his naps came with boss fights. He rubbed his temple and grumbled that the gate must have opened near the manga cafe. Well, this worked out fine. At least he didn't have to pay for gate access. Fate apparently had a sense of humor. Meanwhile, back at the mart, chaos rippled through the aisles. The announcement repeated, warning everyone to evacuate to the underground shelter. Subin's hands trembled as she glanced towards Seoul. What about Gang Jun? He's home alone also. Ever the loyal servant replied with his usual calm tone. My lady, I humbly report that his lord is indestructible. What? Subin blinked. Yes. Also said proudly, imperial scholars once spent a century trying to find a way for him to die. He even decreed research my death. They threw him off the world tree, set him on fire, fed him poison that could kill giants, and he just complained of boredom. Subin just stared, lost between disbelief and terror. So he can't die. Dalso chuckled softly. Indeed, he left out the small detail. That Gang Jun had actually snuck out that morning and threatened to kill him if Subin found out. The next announcement silenced the crowd. Catastrophe level gate confirmed near Seoul Intersection Station. That was the highest classification. A gate capable of wiping out an entire nation. Subin's heart dropped, clutching Seoul closer. Sometime later, Bongo, alongside many other hunters who volunteered, entered the gate to subdue the monsters and prevent dungeon break. The dungeon floor was a white hell of ice and arrogance. Hunters scattered like confetti, while one man, Suji Hun, an S-rank hunter and the so-called Swiftblade, danced through a storm of frost and death. His sword cut through the air so cleanly. It probably shaved atoms for fun. Every low-rank hunter around him suddenly remembered. They were side characters in someone else's highlight reel. Bongo stood there gaping. Watching Jihoon fight was like watching the tutorial boss play itself. The man moved faster than Bongo's paycheck and killed, cleaner than hospital bleach. Yet, even with that monstrous skill, the creatures here, towering snow beasts with ice thicker than human pride, fought him blow for blow. Each one of those things could go toe-to-toe with an S rank. The math didn't math anymore. Jihoon barely managed to parry a hit that would have erased a small village, leapt back, and in a single flash cut the monster down. The weaker hunters cheered, like drunk fans watching a match they paid too little to understand. Bongo clapped too, mostly out of fear and confusion. But Jihoon wasn't untouched. His breathing turned ragged. His blade trembled. The monsters weren't dying fast enough, and there were too many left. Bongo knew this rhythm. It was the same kind of hopeless rhythm that ended with, "We regret to inform you." He thought about what would happen if this gate broke. 3 years ago, they lost an entire city to something like this. If it happened again, there wouldn't be a country left to bury the bodies. And then the world changed its background music. From afar, birds shot into the sky. As the system's announcement pierced everyone's mind, the giants of the snowfield have all fallen. Everyone froze. Jihoon, barely standing, stared in disbelief. The giants, all of them down at once. No one killed that many in an instant. No one human. The ground split. A shadow swallowed their courage. Out of that rift stepped something so tall. The clouds had to make space for its ego. Rimthurs, the frost giant of Niflheim, guardian of the Jotun sanctuary. His presence alone cracked the frost beneath every hunter's boots. When he spoke, his voice wasn't sound. It was gravity. He declared himself the apostle of the gods, served by all Jotun, and demanded one thing. I read. The name shook the cavern, echoing like a curse none of them understood. Hunters screamed, vomited, or just collapsed. Fear wasn't an emotion anymore. It was a landscape. Rimthurs asked again where he was, the one who dared step foot in his sanctuary. Silence answered him. So he grabbed a hunter and turned him into snowflakes. Even Jihoon tried to counterattack, but the giant swatted him aside like bad weather. One flick and the 10th-ranked S-rank hunter became history. Bongo's mind broke into comedic despair. He killed Jihoon with a finger. That's not a monster, that's an HR notice from hell. All hope evaporated. Some hunters muttered prayers. Others just whispered goodbyes. Bongo, clutching his chest, whispered that he couldn't die yet. Not after finding a reason to live again. Not after following him. He turned to run. The wind didn't agree. One lazy gesture from the frost giant sent him tumbling. Like litter in a storm, Bongo hit the ground hard. Tears freezing mid-fall, muttering please. Even he didn't believe in. But then Printer stopped. His gaze turned. Something had entered his awareness from the far side of the snowfield. The ground began to quake again. Bongo looked up and saw a sight that fried his logic. Hundreds, no thousands of giants, undead, pale, and marching all in perfect unison. And on the head of one of those monsters sat him, Gangjin, calm, unbothered, probably wondering if this counted as cardio. Bongo's relief cracked into disbelief. The undead didn't attack him. They bowed, every single one of them. Rimthur's deep voice shook the field. He recognized Gangjin instantly. The one whose hands had meddled with the dead. The one who had stolen the rest of his brothers. The frost giant's fury became a storm. He roared that Gangjin had turned the Jotun into restless corpses, denying them their eternal sleep. Gangjin just sighed, that same bored world. Tired sound that implied this wasn't even the first time a god's apostle yelled at him. Before dying, he asked almost lazily if the lord the Jotun worshipped was stronger than him. That made Rimthurs tremble. Not out of fear, but offense. To him, this was blasphemy. To Gangjin, it was Tuesday. The giant bellowed that even the gods were watching. Gangjin smiled. Good. Let them. He'd been killing gods longer than anyone here had been breathing. Once upon a time, he'd prayed for equals. Now he just buried them, and as the frost giant prepared to strike, Gangjin raised his hand. The corpses of the fallen stirred ice, cracked flesh. Reformed, all the monsters Rimthurs had slain began to rise. The air thickened like a storm holding its breath. Every fallen monster, frost-bitten, shattered, half-melted, began to twist and crawl back together. Bones bent like metal under divine command, fusing, folding, devouring one another. In a ritual that spat on biology and art at the same time. Bongo's jaw dropped somewhere around the fifth monster merge. By the time the mass had reached the size of a cathedral, he'd already stopped trying to understand and started praying to anything that still picked up calls. And then the grotesque thing finished forming a living mountain, stitched from nightmare frost and unholy craftsmanship. It was 5 times taller than Rimthur's, who himself could have used Mount Everest as a walking stick. Even the frost giant froze mid-breath for the first time in eons. Something bigger looked down on him. The new creation moved. A single step that cracked the earth like it owed him money. The giant tried to defend, bracing against its assault. But the abomination's hand came down like divine sarcasm, heavy, uncaring absolute. The frost giant strained against it, roaring, his legs sinking into the ground, as if the world itself didn't want to bear witness. Gungjun tilted his head. Do you think the god you serve is stronger than me? Rimthurs didn't answer. He couldn't. He was too busy getting crushed by the very corpses of his brothers. Then the abomination struck a punch so brutal, it looked like the universe buffering. The frost giant flew back, crashing through layers of frozen terrain, each impact rewriting geography. When the dust settled, even Bongu's fear needed a moment to process what it was looking at. He stammered, Is he dead? Gangjun sighed, like a man tired of explaining basic physics. Bongo, why would you say that? That's ominous. You say things like that, and corpses start taking it personally. Meanwhile, the abomination kept pounding Rimthurs, smashing him into the ice over and over, like Gangjun had ordered it to teach physics through blunt trauma. After a few dozen hits, even Bonga's moral compass begged for mercy. Ahyung. He managed, shouldn't he be? Pulverized by now. Gangjun looked at him as if he just asked why water was wet. Bongu, trying to distract himself from dying of secondhand terror, asked how he'd even made that thing. Gangjun's eyes lit up with the kind of joy reserved for parents explaining kindergarten crafts are simple. Think of it as slime play, good for tactile and creative development. I used a similar principle. Mix your ingredients, Jotun material, frost essence, stir briskly with magic. Let it harden slightly, then mold into the desired shape. Bongu blinked. Gangjun smiled. Basically, it's an arts and crafts golem. I call it a rag golem. He gestured proudly to the monstrosity that could level continents. So what's your impression? Bongu, still trembling, muttered that it felt avant-garde, maybe Nordic surrealism. Gangjun beamed like a proud parent. Gangjun turned back to the dying frost giant anyway. After all this drama, it turns out the so-called guardian of Niflheim is just weak. Seriously, the loud ones always are. He flicked his wrist. The rag golem dissolved flesh, bone, and magic dispersing into snowflakes. Bongu just stared slack-jawed. He couldn't decide what was more terrifying, that Gangjun could summon such a monster, or that he could delete it with a gesture. Then the system flooded with notifications. The achievement unlocked, the one feared by all giants, Guardian of Jotun Sanctuary. Rimthurs defeated, gate collapse. Countdown 1 hour, a rank title granted. New hostility detected, the giant whose mouth was sewn shut. Rimtos Baka has declared you enemy of all Jotun constellation. Lords of Niflheim are now hostile toward you. Gangjun sighed. Hostile. Hostile, they're always hostile. They can come find me if they're that bothered. The system wasn't done. Summoning condition met personal vassal dream. Demon Empress Ariel. Gangjin blinked once. How, that's new. He lifted his hand again. The air shimmered, tearing open as reality reluctantly obeyed him. A portal bloomed, violet, pulsing and alive. From within it, a sleeping figure stirred, wrapped in dreamlight and power. As she stepped out, the frost itself bent. Her presence was soft yet crushing, the kind of beauty that made mortals forget their survival instinct. Bongo froze for a man who just witnessed necromantic cosmology. This somehow shocked him more. Gangjun raised a hand in casual greeting. It's been a while, Ariel. Have you been well? She crossed the distance in an instant and embraced him. It has been too long, my lord. Ariel's eyes were glistening, still trying to wrap her head around the impossible sight. Gangjun very much alive, 10 years plus. She had mourned him, assumed him gone to eternal rest. And yet here he was standing in front of her like a stubborn ghost. Refusing to stay dead, she squatted down closer, inspecting his face, worried about the dullness in his eyes and lips. Then, as if reading her intentions, Gangjun asked her to back off a little. Ariel yelped, apologized for getting too close, shuffled back, and dropped into a formal kneel. reciting her ceremonial respect like a robot on autopilot. Gang Jun waved it off enough with the theatrics. "How have you been?" he asked. Casual as ever, Ariel rattled off the usual updates. After he and the Archduke entered eternal rest, everyone had kept their posts. Nazgul, the former military minister, had taken over his duties and was holding the state together. Gang Jun noted that with the faintest of nods, good, at least people weren't falling apart. He made her stand and inwardly considered how Nazgul might be the best choice for emperor if he had to pick someone. Ariel then asked about Crapsley, the Archduke who was meant to spend the eternal rest with him. Gang Jun replied that Crapsley went to the mart with his sister. Gang Jun didn't clarify, just waved it off, saving the rest of the conversation for the ride back home. Ariel agreed, muttering obediently. And just like that, Gang Jun's mind was already 3 steps ahead, scheming. Bong-gu, his one and only disciple, had no idea he was about to be handed yet another impossible task. Gang Jun launched into it with all the subtlety of a cannon. Since Bango had snuck out, he needed to get back before his sister returned. The cleanup of the dungeon, that was now Bongo's problem. With a casual lift of his hand, Gang Jun counted down disappeared in a flicker, leaving Bongo staring like a deer in headlights, leaving a vortex of chaos and responsibility behind. Bongo's mind spun somehow. Everything in the gate would have to sort itself out like last time, because clearly that was the kind of luck he had. Now cut to Seoul and intersection station. The battlefield of the gate. Soldiers and management bureau were already swarming. Director Mr. Choi arrived immediately, asking about the first assault team. Officers rattled off the S-rank tent details, and then almost like a punchline, mentioned a newly rising C-rank rookie deployed in the first wave. Mr. Choi raised a brow. A C-rank really? The officer explained. This rookie had recently taken down a rank murderer from the Anti-Management Bureau Alliance. Mr. Choi's face tightened. He vaguely remembered the kid promising. Too promising, maybe now just a corpse in the catastrophic gate. The officer's words reminded the director that these sacrifices weren't in vain. Secondary damage needed to be prevented at all costs. And yes, director understood. Mr. Choi clenched his fists, furious inwardly, thinking about how many young lives had been gambled and sometimes lost suddenly. The director noticed that the gate was shrinking. He wondered if the Calamity Gate has been subdued. Then among the staggering, exhausted hunters returning, one of the officers noticed that amid all the hunters, collapsed like broken action figures, one was still conscious. The director bolted over and froze in disbelief when he saw it was Bongo, the one currently trending for reasons no one fully understood. Evening settled in and Gwangju was at home, half watching the news. Reports confirmed that the catastrophic level gates near Silim intersection station had been successfully suppressed at 4 p.m. And Mr. Choi, Management Bureau Director, praised the hunters for their sacrifices and risk-taking that had protected the nation's peace. Gwangju, meanwhile, was focused on a crisis of a different scale. Dinner. He asked his sister when it would be ready. She said it was almost done and asked if he was hungry. He said he wasn't exactly hungry, but wanted to use the meal as a tactical tool, which made perfect sense in the chaotic logic of parenting. His daughter Sol, however, was a force of nature. She gleefully insisted on playing the same calculation play game again, ignoring any sense of time or parental sanity. Gwangju's frown deepened as he wondered how many rounds they had done. Now 15-20 stopped counting after the third existential crisis. Now Sol had elevated the customer game to a cruel art form. 1 mil caused 8,000 once. And she was absolutely uncompromising. Gwangju tried to negotiate, but she slammed the counter with the finality of a small tyrant, declaring the world's rules. He handed over the money, resigned, and braced for the next round. Seol immediately demanded another, and the cycle of play continued. 3 hours later, Gwangju's body ached. His mind frayed and Seol's enthusiasm remained unshaken. Meanwhile, Dalso and Il Riel watched from the sidelines, horrified at the patience required to endure this tiny tyrant's relentless energy. Mavis, not to be outdone in judgment, noted that the immortal bloodline clearly came with an innate obsession and cruelty. Doseo whispered to Ariel that they should call this torment the Eons of Calculation play. Mavis teased about Doseo's surprising skill in naming things, and Ariel agreed, declaring it a fitting title for this small but terrifying ritual. Gwangju suddenly realized that everyone had been observing him. and sail the entire time, sending a shiver through the group. Subin arrived signaling that dinner was ready. Gwangju felt a momentary surge of hope for escape, but Seol was far from done. She refused to eat and insisted on playing more, forcing negotiations that left Gwangju exhausted and plotting subtle revenge that would never come. Eventually, Seol agreed to eat, but with a glint in her eyes that warned Gwangju. She expected the game to resume. Immediately afterward, he accepted defeat. Holding his chest with a mix of exhaustion, love, and terror, food finally appeared, laid out generously, and Subin encouraged everyone to eat heartily. Gwangju was ready to claim even this small victory when Ariel approached, formally introducing herself as the former imperial household minister who had assisted his lord. Subin listened half understanding, half bewildered when Ariel began talking. She glanced at Gangjun, whispering that the girl might not be well. Gangjun calmly assured her otherwise, though Subin wasn't convinced. The body seemed fine, the mind less so. Curiosity made her ask how Ariel had even found him. Ariel started to answer, but Gangjun cut in smoothly, saying they'd met by chance earlier that day. He congratulated himself for returning home before Subin, and forcing Ariel to transform her original form was not something he wanted. Showing up in the living room, Subin realized he'd gone out. Gangjun tried to downplay it. Just a trip to the grocery store. He said. Her tone sharpened when she mentioned the disaster ranked gate earlier that day, and demanded to know what he'd have done if caught in it. Gangjun accepted the scolding with quiet resignation. In the corner, Dalso scribbled everything down, like a royal scribe documenting court drama. Lady Subin chastising His Majesty pretending remorse. Gangjun called his name twice. The spoon in Dalso's hand bent instantly. When asked how old he was, Dalso admitted to being over 12 centuries old. Gangjun observed that someone that ancient should have learned common sense by now. Subin intervened before things escalated. Turning back to Ariel, she asked where she was staying. The long pause gave her the answer before Ariel did. Nowhere. Horrified, Subin insisted she stay with them. Ariel refused, saying she couldn't impose on the imperial household. Subin countered with the unbreakable logic of elder sisters. Either stay here or sleep outside. When Ariel hesitated, Subin blurted that it was an imperial order. The effect was immediate. Ariel dropped to her knees and pledged obedience. Subin froze, realizing her mistake, then awkwardly told her to rise. Gangjun told her to stop before she embarrassed herself further, but she could already see him holding back laughter. The tension broke when the news came on. Reports about the gate disappearing, Seoul barely escaping ruin. 16 hunters dead, 5 unconscious. 1 conscious. Subin quietly called it a miracle. Gangjun reassured her that as long as he lived, nothing like that would happen again. The screen showed Bangu surrounded by reporters. Subin smiled, amused that he'd made national news. Gangjun confirmed it was the same Bangu who'd visited them. When she asked why he hadn't said so, he simply replied that she never asked. Their peace didn't last. Seol, finished with dinner, declared a new round of her favorite game. Cash register. Gangjun froze, summoning Ariel, and also he issued an imperial decree. Find the creator of the Dr. Genius calculation playset, the villain behind this household torment. Both accepted the mission without question. Subin sighed, telling Dalso to ignore the order. She muttered that Gangjun's hatred for that toy had turned divine. Seol cheerfully resumed her game, while Gangjin responded with the spirit of a man pleading for mercy. Later that night, Subin washed dishes alone, her thoughts heavy and quiet. She nearly jumped when Ariel appeared behind her with a tray, hesitantly asking if it would be demeaning to make a small request. Subin, softening, said she could just keep her company instead. As they worked, Ariel began talking mostly about her master. Apparently, he was casual, approachable, not one for strict titles. Subin listened, realizing with mild disbelief that Ariel meant Gangjun. She remembered him handing Seol pocket money at a convenience store and calling it divine generosity. Ariel described how people once worshipped him, temples, prayer statues. Subin muttered that it sounded insane, maybe inspired by North Korea. Ariel explained that other religions had existed, but they faded not through force, but neglect. People simply stopped believing in old gods once Gangjun started giving them results, ending wars, saving nations, ruling for centuries. Subin wasn't sure whether to be impressed or disturbed when she asked if the gods resented him. Ariel said yes. Envy, pride, celestial politics, then added, That maybe it only mattered if those gods had ever truly been real. The phone rang, breaking the spell. It was the grocery store owner calling about Dalso. Subin listened, nodded, and hung up. Turning to Dalso, she told him he had an interview tomorrow. Part-time, 3 p.m. Same store. Dulce froze. Eyes wide to him. This wasn't a job interview. It was the first mission of his new empire. The next day, Mr. Choi, owner of a small store, found himself staring at an unusual applicant. In 10 years of running the place, he'd seen all kinds, but never a man in a full tuxedo for a part-time job. Choi Dalso stood as if he were about to swear an oath before royalty. Mr. Choi confirmed the name, trying to break the awkward air. Dalso replied with military precision, sweat rolling down his face. Despite claiming he wasn't hot, the owner tried to reassure him this was a convenience store, not a palace reception. He apologized for rescheduling the interview, explaining that his last employees had suddenly quit. He'd also heard from Subin that Dalso had memory issues, but hoped it wouldn't interfere with work. Dalso took all of this as a test of devotion to him. This was his first mission in rebuilding his master's new world. When Mr. Choi described the job, simple morning shifts, restocking shelves, cleaning, also bowed deeply, swearing to dedicate himself until his body turned to dust. The owner simply stepped back, unsure if he was being mocked or worshipped. He told also not to overthink it, that punctuality mattered more than loyalty. Oaths. Also insisted that this job was his greatest wish, and begged for the chance to prove himself. Mr. Choi, both startled and impressed, agreed to hire him on the spot. Also thanked him with exaggerated sincerity, mentally, noting that this human of the ruling class deserved utmost respect. Meanwhile, Bongo woke in a hospital room far nicer than his home. The sterile white walls, the faint scent of disinfectant. Even the pillow felt expensive. Before he could wonder about the room's cost, a man in a suit entered and casually mentioned the figure, around 3 million won per day. Discount negotiable. It was SEO Du Cheol, bureau chief. He greeted Bungu, apologizing for the sudden visit, and said he came to ask about the disaster-ranked gate. Bungu nodded, still disoriented. Du Cheol thanked him for his service, noting he was the only conscious survivor. For now his account was all they had. Bungu gave a carefully edited version of events, describing the monstrous strength of the frost giant, and Cho Ji-hoon's defeat, while quietly omitting any mention of Gang Jun. Du Cheol listened intently, confirming that the evidence aligned with their findings. Ji-hoon's wounds suggested instant defeat. Under immense pressure, the only mystery left was who had slain the frost giant. Bungu claimed he didn't know he had blacked out before the end. Satisfied, Dutchel turned to more pleasant matters. He praised Bongo for clearing a disaster-ranked gate, with minimal casualties, a feat no nation had accomplished before. To reward him, the Bureau would cover his mother's hospital expenses, provide family-wide educational support, and include him in the upcoming memorial and award ceremony. Bongo listened in disbelief, inwardly thanking Gang Jun for everything due. Cheol concluded by revealing that Bongo had been selected for a rank adjustment, evaluation at year's end, a potential promotion. Bongo modestly replied that he was fine staying C rank, though the chief smiled as if he already disagreed. When Du Cheol finally left, Bongo sat in silence, realizing these honors might become another burden he hadn't asked for. Two figures met on a rooftop. One had the information. A memorial and award ceremony for the disaster-ranked gate would be held in a few days. They both agreed. It was the perfect stage to act in front of the public. Their plan: kidnap Bongo, expose the Bureau's failures, try to recruit him to the anti-Bureau alliance, and if recruitment failed, kill him later. Bongo arrived at Gang Jun's apartment with bags and found Ariel at the sink, whisk in hand, ordering him to keep quiet. Dalso hovered nearby, oddly theatrical in a store vest. When Bungu asked about the vest, Dalso stammered into a quick bow and began playing shop clerk, proudly announcing he'd just been hired for the morning shift at the nearby Gu store. Bungu congratulated him, puzzled but not hostile, on the balcony, effectively a little cell. Gang Jun leaned against the rail while Seo, perched on a small chair, told everyone that her father was a thief, and that Bungu would be going to jail. Seol's game left Bongo bewildered. Gang Jun treated the balcony like a joke prison, claiming he'd only been locked out for a few hours and was allowed bathroom breaks. Once inside, the mood shifted. Bongo explained his hospital visit and an encounter with the bureau chief. They did praised him, offered benefits, and hinted at a year-end rank evaluation. He admitted he feared looking weak during the evaluation and asked Gang Jun to train him. Gang Jun asked Bong-gu to be realistic. Last-minute cram wouldn't transform a weak hunter into a strong one. Still, he offered a modest promise. He might be able to raise Bong-gu's score by 10 points. He pointed out the necromancer Bong-gu had previously subdued was worth roughly that much. Bong-gu, nervous but hopeful, wondered if that would be enough. Gang Jun smiled, half amused. Half calculated. Bong-gu excitedly replied yes, it would be more than enough. If that's the case, Gang Jun told him to come to his house by 8 a.m. starting tomorrow. Bong-gu thanked him wholeheartedly, then recalled something he told Gang Jun, that they said there'll be a big memorial service and award ceremony before the promotion exam. Gang Jun asked him what exactly the memorial service and award ceremony were about. Bong-gu replied, it's to commemorate the hunters who died during the gate suppression, and an event to award medals to surviving hunters who contributed to the suppression. He said to himself that it's all thanks to Gang Jun, so if he received any award money, he should give it all to him. But as he was about to say something, someone interrupted. It was dull, so he excitedly congratulated Bongo, telling him that it looked like he was finally on the path to success. Bongo, surprised by his sudden appearance, asked what he meant. Also told him he'd be receiving a Medal of Honor in front of everyone. If that's not success, what is? Gang Jun told him it's true, and that he should take lots of commemorative photos with his siblings. While he's at it, he'll have to show them all to his mother when she recovers. Though Gang Jun was right, Bong-gu told him that he'd probably have to go alone. His siblings' college entrance exam was coming up soon. Although she made a fuss about going together, he told her to study since she's a senior. His mother would want his siblings to get into a good university, more than take photos. Gang Jun thought about it. He was always alone too. His sister, who worked like the head of the household, was always busy and looked exhausted, so he couldn't even ask her to come to his graduation. He then told Bong-gu that he'll go with him because on a good day, being alone would make him feel restless. Bong-gu was happy. Gang Jun told him, if he's that happy, he shouldn't just say it. He should show it with goods. Bong-gu was about to say something again about the award ceremony day, but the little cutie saw Princess Sophie. Her favorite character. Bong-gu bought it for her. She was happy, so she asked Bong-gu if he wanted to play with Princess Sophie. Bong-gu agreed. Gang Jun then asked Seol, what about him that is still locked up? The little girl walked and climbed on her chair and replied, no thieves go to jail. Gang Jun, though pissed, couldn't argue with her. Instead, he unleashed his anger on Bong-gu. He asked him how dare he bribe the guard. Bong-gu told him it's not a bribe. He should just call it bail money at least. He then told Gang Jun he'd see him again on his uncertain release date. Suddenly Gang Jun noticed a fly flying past him. He immediately killed it since he sensed a tiny amount of magic in it. He wondered where it came from. At the same time, somewhere outside on a bench were the same boy and girl from earlier. The guy, while reading a paper, told her that the communication had been cut. The scout he sent was neutralized. The targets seemed to have noticed they were being monitored. The girl told him that it seemed like Bong-gu was no ordinary person. The guy agreed for AC rank to defeat the necromancer. They carefully raised without even getting injured. It proved he was strong. If they could recruit him somehow to their side, he definitely strengthened their force. The guy was rank 8 in the Anti-Management Bureau Alliance. Former S-rank Management Bureau Hunter Insect Master Kim Do-hoon. The girl was rank 12. Former S-rank Hunter Torture Technician Lee Hee-ji. Anyway, the guy thought to himself that he underestimated the target. Scout insects move with extremely little mana, yet he noticed. That means Bong-gu's mana sensitivity is at least S rank or higher. His motor performance and combat ability are also likely at least rank. A hunter level. He stood up, then told her they should head back for now, walking into a portal the next day. Gang Jun gave Bong-gu something and told him to wear it from now on, just like Goku, who wore super heavy-weighted clothing, then took it off in critical moments and became impossibly fast. Bong-gu knew what he was talking about, but he asked if such an outdated training method would really be effective. Gang Jun told him it appears in lots of other places too, fighting while wearing heavy stuff, then taking it off and getting stronger. When about to lose, Bong-gu was hesitant. He asked if his joints wouldn't give out first. Since he's a magic type, Gang Jun took it from him, telling him not to do it if he didn't want to. He spent tens of thousands of won to buy it, and he didn't even appreciate it. There are tons of kids dying to get trained by him. If he lined them up, they'd circle the earth a few times. Manhw immediately apologized and decided to go with the idea. Shortly after, he ended up wearing 4 of them. 2 on his hands and 2 on his legs. He had no idea what's so good about it. Plus, it was way heavier than he thought. At minimum, each one must be at least 20 kilograms. Now Gangjun told him to go play with Seol. He will die if he makes him say it twice. The little girl also agreed with the loads on his body. As soon as he knelt down to play with her, he felt a sharp pain in his back. Crouching made the load heavier. The first game she chose to play was the Eons of Calculation. Play also mentioned to him. Now he was beginning to feel the weight of the load. He never expected just sitting and picking up items to be that hard. His hands felt like they'd fall off any time. Now he realized how weak he was. He wondered with teary eyes if he could support his family with such a weak body and obtain the elixir to cure his mother. So he decided to strengthen his resolve. If he can't endure such a thing, he won't accomplish anything. And so 2 hours passed, he was still playing with her. They played all different kinds of games. At that moment his body was as if it no longer is, but he couldn't refuse the little girl. But that wasn't the end. After childcare came household chores training. This torture continued repeatedly for quite a number of days, while still carrying the weight bags just like that. 1 week passed. He could see that his body was getting more exhausted every day. He thought, Gangjun must have a purpose for putting him through all that. Maybe he's testing his patience and perseverance. He thought that's the only explainable reason, since there are actually a lot of stories like that. Masters don't easily pass on their secrets. He concluded that Gangjun wasn't testing how far he could go. And so another week later, Gangjun told him it's already the end of the month. When did he say his promotion was? Manhw replied, early December. Gangjun never expected time to fly so fast. While they were messing around, he needed to start the real training soon. He then asked him what day the medal memorial and award ceremony were. Manhw quickly checked his phone and told him it's tomorrow. Gangjun told him they should go to the award ceremony first, then start proper training. After happy, he asked Gangjun if he finally passed his test. Gangjun had no idea what test he was talking about, but Manhw thought Gangjun was testing his patience and perseverance. For the past 2 weeks, well, Gangjun did it just for fun, but he decided to let him think whatever he wanted. So he told Manhw he had worked hard. So they'll start training tomorrow. Same time, Ansung City, Gyeonggi Province. Inside a bar, Di-hyun told Hee-ji that the operation is right around the corner, and the target is strong. Behind them were his men. He told them that when the award ceremony begins tomorrow, and the target Kim Bong-gu steps onto the podium, they'll cause chaos, kidnap the target, and disappear. The next day, Gangjun put on a corporate dress, but he complained about how uncomfortable it was. Subin told him he looked good in it, then asked if he was going with the lady. Gangjun replied yes. He also has to go to work at the convenience store. She told him all right. He should make sure to tell Manhw congratulations for her. He told her okay, then told Ariel they should go. As he was about to leave, Sale wished him goodbye in a very polite manner. Her cuteness really touched his heart. Subin was also impressed at how good she was. She told Gangjun that this morning's children's TV program had content about greeting etiquette. It's one of the children's programs he loved when he was still young. But Gangjun couldn't remember all of it since it's been so long. He then patted his daughter, told her he'll be back sometime later. He arrived at the venue. It was so crowded. He saw how happy and lively the place was. He was speechless, because he had not experienced such peace for a long time. At first he thought it was insensitivity to danger, but actually, they're hoping the misfortune on the news won't happen to them. Trying hard to believe hunters will guarantee their safety, so they're just acting out a stolen peace. What a shifty world, he commented. But seeing everyone gathered, he realized it must be a bigger event than he thought. Bongo told him that the catastrophe level gate suppression is a historic event for humanity. He heard many famous hunters are attending too, because successfully suppressing a catastrophe level gate with such minimal damage is the first case worldwide. Thanks to that, overseas countries are showing interest too. Gangjun looked at the hunters standing over there. Most are pathetic and few are barely decent. He then asked Bongo if he was sick or something for drinking so much water. Bongo replied no. Actually, he's representing all surviving hunters and going up on the podium alone today. The others are still unconscious or can't attend. A security man then told him that the memorial and award ceremony is about to start, so he should head to the seat he showed him. Manhw agreed, then told Gangjun he'd be going, and that Gangjun could go to the seat he mentioned earlier. Minutes later, inside the hall, a man was talking boring shit about the management bureau and all. Gangjun was already feeling bored, but he became focused again as they announced that Bongo, representing all surviving hunters, will be reading a eulogy for the hunters who died during the suppression. Seeing him walk up the stage, Gangjun deemed him to look like a robot. But then he noticed bloodlust. Dane goes for Ariel. She told him that it seems like they're plotting something sinister. Gangjun agreed. He wondered what those bastards are trying to do. Recalling the peaceful atmosphere from earlier made him worried. He said to himself that there must be those who try to seize everything with power, and their purpose is obvious, though it's not his business. Recalling his daughter, he doesn't like it. He hates playing half-ass hero. If something happens, the hunters will step up. Still, at least tonight's dinner with his family. He wants Sale to be there with a smiling face. So he stood up. He didn't feel like watching anymore. He then told Imperial Household Minister Ariel to listen. From now on, they'll stop those plotting something sinister. She should kill on sight. But she should keep the leader alive for interrogation. She should suppress them with full force now above the roof. All guards there were taken down by Dahoon's insects. He called through the walkie-talkie, telling them that all rooftop occupation has been completed. He sat down on a corpse, then reports started coming in. Mechanical room occupation team just completed occupation. Explosive installation team just finished installing at 8 locations. Intrusion team also ready. The moment the target Bongu steps onto the podium, they execute the operation. Dahoon said to himself that the plan was to simultaneously detonate bombs, installed at 8 locations in the building. Then the elite intrusion team storms the convention hall. Indiscriminate massacre while kidnapping the target. Will you? Snipers turned into magic parasite, host to block support forces routes. He deemed it a perfect operation derived from hundreds of simulations, so failure probability converges to 0. Someone then told him that the target is going up on stage now. With that, he told them to start the mission. But then something started going wrong. His men started screaming. He thought the waiting room infiltration team got discovered. He was shocked as the screaming became intense. There was no more response from the mechanical room infiltration team. Another response came in. Explosives installation team on the verge of annihilation. All bombs have been disarmed. Dahoon couldn't believe it. The team assembled from only the elite were annihilated or lost communication in less than a minute. He thought about it. The first subordinate hit by the enemy was the one infiltrated as staff in the convention hall waiting room. Each floor of this building has about 20,000 pyong. So, to move from the convention hall waiting room to the mechanical room would require at least several minutes minimum. It would take even more time to move unnoticed. He wondered if it means that at least dozens are moving in several groups. He thought the Management Bureau noticed and moved, but he deemed that not to be the case. Since the Management Bureau is an organization that prioritizes capture, and even if they notice their operation, there's no possibility they did respond in such an aggressive way. Then he wondered who it is. Another response then came in. The girl told him that an uninvited guest came to their side too. So can she kill her? Hearing she was a lady, he asked if the enemy who went to the intrusion team is a woman. She replied, yeah. I've been wanting to torment a pretty lady for a long time. Immediately he shouted for her to hold on. The lady is incredibly strong, but she didn't listen. He then asked her how many enemies in total. She replied, for now, 1 person. He thought about it. Underground aquarium. Communication with the intrusion team also cut off. Just 1 person is pushing back, not only the intrusion team members, but even Lee Hee-ji, so he wondered who on earth it is. Should he report them? Another response then came in. It was a voice that he didn't recognize. So he asked the person, who are you? The person replied, started saying random shit. It pissed off Dohan, so he told the person that he's warning him. If he doesn't properly reveal his identity and affiliation now, he'll let him die comfortably. The person replied, do you really think you can kill me? Then suddenly the rooftop door broke open. It was Gangjun. He was pissed. He told Dahoon to try and kill him then.